Tatiana, I am so excited to be having this conversation with you. You and I, over the past, many months now, have had really wonderful conversations about race, about identity, of being othered. There's something refreshingly honest and open about you. You're so in touch with your emotions and feelings. And you're such an example for others because I think it really prompts others to do the same. So I want to start our conversation for our Voices of Stack conversation. I want to talk about race, identity, being othered. And when I say identity, I mean multiple identities. So you, in talking about this, you brought up this really interesting term that you just learned about. I want you to talk about that term.
Yeah, so code switching. I had a longtime friend of mine. Her sister is a professor at Framingham State. She recently did a talk about this term called code switching. And I never realized that I also did this in my life. There's never really a term for it at the point. I grew up in a white neighborhood in Framingham. I was never made to feel othered during my time in public school. I've definitely seen it happen to other kids, and it never really sat well with me. So, my, I guess, defense mechanism against that is just the code switch. You go from what you would generally act at home to a completely uh, different set of actions when you're at school.
So let's kind of dive into that. So let's for you, what would code switching mean? Like what does that mean for you? So you acted one way at home and then outside you acted another way because you were expected to act that way?
It's a lot of just trying to get an idea of what everybody else around me is doing. Like some of the girls like one thing, boys like another thing. So it's a matter of seeing how kids around me acted versus if I did, for example, I went on a trip to DC in my when I was in middle school, and there was at one point I was in a hotel. I was watching Mad TV at the time, and they were doing a spoof of Spanish telenovelas. So I was just watching that, laughing. It was funny, and later on, I one of my friends on the trip came at me and was saying that the person I roomed with was going around being like, "Oh, she's watching Spanish telenovelas and da da da." And I'm like, "It was Mad TV. They were making fun of Spanish telenovelas." Like, it was kind of weird at that point. I just thought it was like, why the need? Like, if she actually paid attention, she would have seen it was Mad TV and not a Spanish telenovela. Not that there's anything wrong with Spanish telenovelas.
Well,
And
that's the thing. What is wrong with a Spanish watching a Spanish telenovela, right?
yeah, and the need to be chatty to everybody else about it, like I'm again being othered. It was just incredibly a really weird experience. I think the only experience I've had during public schooling, aside from that, out of after I graduated from public school, started my careers just in general retail experience as a job outside of school, earning money. It was a different experience because you're out of that structured environment. You're dealing with just everyday life.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing more and more that people were focusing on what I am instead of who I am.
Interesting. What I am versus who I am.
Mhm.
And how do you want people to know? Like, if someone were to say that's so powerful, Tatiana, people focus on what I am versus who I am. So let's talk about who you are. How would you want people to know who you are?
I can't, I honestly don't feel like I can box myself in.
Good.
I enjoy being able to reach out to different experiences. I've been pretty much sheltered my entire life, so once I was able to get out into the adult world, do, normal adult things, I'm just like, oh, I love being able to learn new things. I went to Europe my younger years. I was enthralled with Japanese stuff, so I know a little bit of Japanese. And I don't want to be defined by what I am. I mean, absolutely what I am is part of who I am, but that shouldn't be the only focus. I'm so much bigger than just what you see.
Mm, that's right. And I remember you said because you are Puerto Rican, correct?
Mhm.
And you said your grandmother or your grandfather, grandmother, and mother, right? Were born in Puerto Rico. Is that right?
Grandmother and grandfather. My mother was born
Grandmother.
here.
Okay, your mother was born in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
But you want to be known for more than just what people see, right? Because you've told me stories of people hearing your last name and assuming that you can speak Spanish or speaking to you in Spanish or Portuguese. And and you want to be more than that. You want people to not necessarily assume, but have like a deeper conversation before they say, how did that one person again say goodbye to you when you were working at Dick's Sporting Goods?
Oh, I was letting a couple into the fitting room, and they said obrigado, which means thank you in Portuguese. So I'm just like, you're welcome, but I don't speak Portuguese.
I completely understand. I've had people say, goodbye in Mandarin, like zaijian or hello in Japanese to me. Um, and and I it's a very weird feeling. You're like, I think you have good intentions, but you're wrong. And English is my first language, and I would prefer hello and goodbye versus the different languages. So I understand that, and it is hard when you feel like people have already boxed you in or identified you and labeled you before you've had a chance to do that. So what I want to do now is fast forward, and you have navigated a significant professional inflection point, and you are starting a new role with a fast growing company, which is very excited. And I want to hear from you advice you have for people, or why people should think about when they are navigating a professional inflection point, when they are trying to find a new job or find a new career. Why should they do it with a group of people versus doing it on their own?
It's absolutely better to do it with a group of people because that's going to be your main network. The fact that I am open and willing to learn would benefit anyone in any group setting because there are things that somebody else knows that you don't. You just have to be
That's right.
humble enough to know that you don't know everything and that you do need help. The network is absolutely valuable. Um, Again, one person might have a contact that does it for you. You get the job through that contact, and that's what worked for me. Working by yourself, if you're that type of person, go for it. That's totally cool. If you know what you're doing, great. But if you're trying to do a career switch, you might again not know everything with what's going on, the correct path to take, what you need to know in order to do the job properly. And that's why I chose at my inflection point in life to go with Stack Education and their web development program because I've always had an interest in technology, how the internet does the things it's supposed to do, how to build a website that works. And I really wanted to increase my knowledge. I wanted the career switch. I want to be in the know with current technology because that's the way things are going nowadays. Technology needs people.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get the new information. I wanted to learn and Stack Education definitely was on in the forefront of get making sure that people are learning the proper tools, that they are connected with people in the business, that they're informed of how the business runs. Without that, I honestly wouldn't have known where to start in trying to do it on my own.
So this leads to my next question then, which is what would you tell your younger self?
Don't be afraid to try new things. It can only lead to either success or you find out what you truly don't like to do it. There's no harm in trying something new and then realizing that you just don't like it. It's not your thing. You're that much more confident in yourself knowing that this is probably not for me, but you could definitely do something adjacent to it. And now that you have the knowledge, you can work that into what you're going to be doing in the future or come up with something completely new. It never hurts to have knowledge, even if it's not something that you're totally thrilled with.
That is a great advice and a great thing that I think many people need to hear. My last question for you, Tatiana, is what advice would you give for those navigating or about to navigate a professional inflection point?
The advice I would give is to don't be so hard on yourself.
Mm,
Things are going to fall through the cracks. You're not going to get the job that you really, really wanted. And that's absolutely okay. You keep trying, you keep going for what you want. And then if, you know, you're finding that you can't truly get into that point, do something adjacent to it. There's no harm in going to what you want to do adjacent. Currently, that's what I'm doing now. I'm going with something that I already have a ton of skill in, which is a lot of customer service stuff, but I also have my web development background, which will be able to show those that I work with that, hey, I know how to do this, but I also know how to do this, this, and this, and the other thing. So it's
that's right.
very helpful to expand your knowledge base and you can start with one thing and then move up from there.
And you're working with the company, which I think is so key. You're working with such a great company and people that have said, look, this is your job now, but we are at a place where you can explore and try and do and go different places. So shout out to Mechanic Advisors. It's a really shout out to Mechanic Advisors for enabling that culture.
Yeah, it's more
It's normal for
manageable.
everyone.
You
Yeah.
can work your way up from there, and again, like I
Yeah.
said, if it comes to a point where you find yourself, this doesn't seem like the thing for me, but this other thing seems
Yeah.
really cool,
Yeah.
at least you're already in and you can go wherever you want.
Tatiana, thank you so much for sharing your voice and your perspective and talking about race and identity, which is such an important topic. And by the way, identity goes beyond just race.
Absolutely.
It just happens to be what you and I were talking about today in terms of
Mhm.
identity. Um, Talking about that, because I know that'll resonate with so many people, not just the STAT community, but beyond, and for sharing your advice and perspective for those who are navigating what's next in their career or thinking about doing that. So
Yeah,
thank you, Tatiana.
absolutely. Thank you for having me, Peggy.